Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here, finally in person. My name is Dr. Leigh George, and I am founder of Freedom, a strategic branding and marketing agency. And today I want to talk to you not only about why inclusive marketing is important, but how it can totally transform the way you approach marketing and help you achieve an impact that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. To kick us off, I want to start with this story. So, I am a huge fan of true crime. Any other true crime fans out there? I see a few. So I love the documentaries, the podcasts, all of it. And recently I was watching a documentary on Netflix on the Yorkshire Ripper, who was a serial killer in northern England in the 1970s. And as I'm watching this documentary, a female journalist comes on and says something that just grabs my brain and just holds my attention. And what she says is this: if you're looking for a figure from Victorian myth, you're unlikely to come up with a lorry driver from Bedford. And who she's referring to here are the police detectives who are working on the Yorkshire Ripper case. So these were all white men of a similar age, all from a similar background. And they made certain assumptions about the victims in the case, and because of those assumptions, they were convinced that the killer they were looking for was a Jack the Ripper kind of character. And because of those assumptions that they made, it derailed their case for 5 years. They chased down leads, they went in wrong directions, and after 5 years, when they finally caught the Yorkshire Ripper, he was not like the person they had imagined. He was, in fact, a middle-class guy with a family and a decent job. So I'm sure you're asking, Leigh, but what does all of this have to do with marketing? And it's that biases, especially unconscious ones, shape the way we make sense of the world all the time. And this happens in marketing. I came across something, a post on Instagram that really sums this up. And the post said, "We see the world not as the way it is, but the way we are. We see the world not as it is, but as we are." That, in a single sentence, sums up what bias is. So bias can hijack our efforts and can actually lead to marketing disasters. And I want to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. So this is a campaign by Estee Lauder to promote a new serum that they were introducing. And it's a video game that was online. And all of the challenges in the video game were around getting younger. So the more challenges you won, the younger you became. Now, the reason I found out about this campaign was because of the backlash that it sparked. Women were furious that they were being asked to play a game in which they became younger. They said, you know, why are you saying that the only value that women has is if we look young? Why is the way we look not enough? Why isn't it okay to be the age we are? Here's another example from Spain. The postal service there wanted to create a campaign to raise awareness of racism. And so they came up with this campaign. If you look closely at the stamps, you'll see that the darker they are, the less value they have. People were outraged. They said, this is not raising awareness of racism. This is, in fact, a racist campaign. So just like the police detectives in the Yorkshire Ripper case, as marketers, we make assumptions all the time. We make assumptions about our audiences, who they are, what they care about, why they do things. We make assumptions about the actions that they take on our website, why they click certain things. And we make assumptions that can lead to public relations disasters, outcries, backlash, like the cases of Estee Lauder and the Spanish Postal Service. And so today I want to help you avoid those kinds of disasters. First, I want to talk to you about how to become more aware of bias in order to avoid it. And then I want to talk to you about a new way to understand your audiences that is based on understanding them on their own terms, and then using that understanding to tell stories that are more impactful because they actually revolve around what your customers care about. And throughout my entire talk, I will be giving you questions and tips and tools that you can use immediately when you leave this room to start incorporating some of these ideas. So I want to talk about two kinds of biases. One is personal bias and one is corporate bias. We all have bias. It is a natural thing to have. We all have bias because we are all human beings occupying different bodies, different perspectives, different backgrounds. And so it's perfectly normal to have bias. But it's important to have some kind of a detector in place that can help us make sure that we don't let our biases determine the decisions and guide our thinking around things. I am a huge fan of Volvo. I think I'm on my 4th Volvo car at this point. And as you know, Volvos are known for their safety features. So when I'm driving down the road, if a car enters comes up alongside me on either side, this light pops up in my rearview mirror to alert me, Leigh, do not change lanes because you will crash. You will get into a car accident. And so we need these kinds of detectors for our blind spots, for our biases, because biases are like blind spots. So how can we create these sorts of detectors? And I think the most important thing we can do is make sure we have the right people in the room when we are making decisions around our marketing. And I want to show you an example of what can happen when the right people are not in the room. This is Tiffany & Company, a very revered legacy brand. Recently, they wanted to reposition themselves to attract a younger audience, which makes total sense. Brands do this all the time. And when they got together to come up with this new great campaign to attract younger customers, the idea that they came up with was, let me check my notes here, to bash mothers. In what universe is that a good thing to do? I'm a mother. How many of you out there are moms? How many people have mothers? This sparked an incredible amount of backlash. You can see the Instagram comments where women are like, what? Why are you coming after me? What have I done? What does this even mean? People were outraged around this. And as I thought about this campaign, I thought about all the people who had to approve this before it went live. I thought about the copywriter, the designer, the art director, the project manager, the account director, the VP, both people on the agency side and on the client side. No one seemed to have raised their hand to say, maybe this is a bad idea. And so what you can do to create your own bias detector is open up your meetings. Just because it's a marketing meeting doesn't mean you can't have people from other parts of your organization. Invite people who have direct contact with your customers, whether they're customer service people or sales people or membership people. Invite people that work on your product, but also think about what are the perspectives of the people that you're inviting. Do you have people from different backgrounds, different levels of seniority? Make sure that you have a group of diverse people as you're evaluating and conceptualizing your campaigns. So now I want to talk about corporate bias. And when I say corporate bias, I think of it as that lens we apply to the world, or that gets applied through all of the tools and frameworks we use. And here I'm talking about personas and journey maps and market segments, and all of those things that we're taught to use as marketers that help us make sense of our customers. On the one hand, they're great, but the challenge is that they force us to look at the world through the lens of our business instead of looking at our business through the lens of our customer. And let me talk about market segments as a way to kind of get into what I'm referring to here. So market segments can be immensely useful, right? It takes lots and lots of information, consolidates it into groups that help us market. But the problem with doing that, basing groups on arbitrary personal attributes or demographics, is it elides all of these differences that are really important when it comes to the way people make decisions. Because because people share the same personal attribute doesn't mean they need the same things or have the same goals, and on and on. So here's an example of a graphic that was floating around social media that shows two guys who look identical on paper in terms of their personal attributes, their demographics, but we know culturally that Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne are incredibly different. Different goals, different ways of looking at the world, different aspirations, different needs. So if all the tools we've been using to make sense of our customers are biased, force us to look at our customers through the lens of our business, what can we use to really understand our customers on their own terms? I was in the grocery store the other day, my local grocery store, Snyder's in Silver Spring, if anyone knows it, and I came across this display and I thought, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. They're not trying to sell me wine through the language of wine. They're not talking about the acidity or the tannins or the bouquet or the nose or all of those snobby words that winemakers use to talk about their wine. They are talking to me in my language. Rough day, when you just can't, right? Because for me, wine is vacation. Wine is like vacation in a bottle. If I am drinking a glass of wine, that means I am off the clock, I am not a mom, I am not a worker, I can relax and do what I want to do. And this approach to marketing is one that is kind of epitomized by a tool called Jobs to be Done. And the whole premise of Jobs to be Done is, as human beings, we all want to make progress. We all want to move from where we are to a better place. And we hire products and services to help us get there. And the beautiful thing about Jobs to be Done is, it's innately inclusive, because it doesn't say you have to look a certain way or be a certain age or have a certain background. It's anyone can share the same job. So here's another example, and one reason I love this campaign so much, it's as though it is not marketing the product at all, it is marketing the job to be done. And in fact, you don't even see the product in the advertising. And so for this campaign, Bring on the Sun, right? It's really talking about the job that the product does. It doesn't talk about the style of the sunglasses or the materials or the colors or anything like that. It really focuses solely on the people who will be wearing the sunglasses and what they need. And then to kind of further emphasize the inclusivity of this approach, the brand Ace and Tate show you a wide variety of people of different ages, of different races, to really kind of underscore how inclusive this is. And so how do you put together a job to be done? There are two components. One is, what is that progress someone's trying to make? How will life be better when they have the right solution? And the second is, what are they struggling with now? What's holding them in place from making that progress? So when you put those two things together, this is what a job to be done statement looks like. And this is an example from education. Prove to me that my child will be able to learn at a pace and level tailored to her unique social, emotional, and academic needs. This is what is holding a person in place. They want proof. They don't care about student-to-teacher ratio. They don't care about the names of the classes. They want proof that their child will get a customized experience in that school, so that I can feel confident about the value of her education and have peace of mind. This is where the person wants to get to. They want to get to a place where they don't have to keep checking back at the school and making sure that her daughter's needs are met, that she can be confident and know that her daughter is being taken care of in school. So how can you apply Jobs to be Done? Obviously, you're going to need to talk to your customers, and you can do that through interviews or focus groups, but you can also do that through simple role play. So you can have one person be the interviewer and someone else kind of play the customer, whether that's a salesperson or customer service rep. And you want to start off with what I think of as a magical question. And that question is, tell me about a time when. Notice, you are not talking about yourself. You are not asking about your brand. You are not asking about your product or service. This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with your audience. You want to understand the situation in which they were stuck and were looking for a solution. What was going on? What made them feel stuck? What were their emotions? What were the steps they took to feel unstuck? Including what were the solutions that they tried? And when they start talking about the solutions, you want to ask them almost, it reminds me of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, what did you or didn't like about each one? Because you want to understand what in the audience's mind, in your consumer's mind, is a solution that works, and what is a solution that does not work. And you can take all of this information and insights and use it to build your jobs to be done. So another way to understand your audience on their own terms is to think about them as a community, because, brands may not like to admit this, but communities exist apart from brands with their own identities, cultures, geographies, all of those things. So this is the Andy Warhol Museum of Art in Pittsburgh's TikTok account. And like Tiffany, they wanted to attract a younger customer base as visitors to the museum. Now, they did not decide to hire someone to do social media for them because they knew social media would be important. They didn't hire an agency to do social media for them. They did something absolutely radical. They sat down and they asked themselves, why do we matter to this community? Why do we matter? What is our role? How can we support this community? These are radically different questions than brands have asked in the past. And so that line of inquiry led them to develop a workforce development program through which they brought in Black and brown teenagers who were interested in branding and marketing, trained them on Andy Warhol's art, trained them on IP, on accessibility, and said, please run our TikTok accounts for us. So this is a radically different way of looking at your audience, accepting them on their own terms, and really partnering with them to create a relationship in which you can both benefit. Another way to think about community is as communities of interests, where people come together around shared passions and shared interests, and brands are actually conveners for those groups. So Food 52 is one example that started out as a recipe site and is now really a food community, where you can join and there are different on-ramps for you to interact with other members and with the brand. You could submit recipes that you could vote on recipes, some of which will get featured in a cookbook. You can contribute feedback around products that you want developed, and you can interact with each other. This is happening more and more. You see it a lot with like bike brands, running brands, where their role is to convene communities of people who enjoy those activities and help connect them up. There are even rock stars, musical acts who are doing this. SZA, for example, has created an advisory board of fans to listen to her music before she puts it out publicly. So how can you start to incorporate this kinds of understanding of customers based on their own terms, especially when it comes to community? You can ask yourself the same question that the Warhol Museum did. Why do you matter to audiences? And then you could also look at, what kind of communities could you be a part of? What kinds of groups of interests or passions or people would make sense for you because you have an opportunity to serve them? You can ask yourself, what role do you have to play in supporting the goals of that community? And I also just want to add, if you are interested in this idea of audience as community, you should go to Christina's talk, which is at the end of the day. I think it's the last session of the day. And she's amazing and will give you a lot of information about that. So we've talked about bias. We've talked about how to understand audiences on their own terms. And so now I want to talk about how do you apply that knowledge in building stories that are more impactful, both in terms of the messaging you use and the imagery that you use. So I was leafing through a magazine because I still like, analog at times, and I came across this ad, and I thought, okay, Neutrogena for people with skin. I mean, I guess that's inclusive. Technically, it is, but who are these people, and what is the skin they're talking about? So I started to do some research on the campaign, and I discovered Kerry Washington is the spokesperson. She's a famous Black actress. But the more images and the more ads I saw of this campaign, I realized that it wasn't inclusive at all. It was actually giving me a standard that I had to conform to, because all of the people in the campaign were conventionally beautiful with flawless skin. And so really, instead of being inclusive, this was a campaign about conformity and offering standards that then everyone had to conform to. And in my mind, I compared it to someone like Nike, where that brand is based on the idea that anyone can be great, any body can be an athlete. And they use images like this, which are incredibly powerful. So you have this woman who's visibly pregnant, raising up this barbell that looks incredibly heavy. And so it's really giving credence and authenticity to a message that says anybody can be an athlete. Another brand that I think is doing a great job here is Girlfriend Collective. And they're a leisure and workout wear brand. And they're based on the belief that health and wellness comes in all shapes and sizes, and representation is important. And so throughout their website, they not only have that message, but they have images to back that up. So images of women as well as men of all shapes and sizes, different races wearing their clothes. And this idea of building messaging around a belief can be incredibly powerful. And I think the benefit and the reason it's powerful is because it's based on an idea, it acts as a signal. If you're saying, as Nike does, anybody can be an athlete, and if you believe that that's important, come join us, we're your people. Apple is one of the most famous brands for doing this, right? We all know what their belief is. It's the idea that it's the crazy ones, the weirdos, the freaks who think different, who make difference, who innovate, who change the world. And so approaching messaging in this way, revolving around an idea as opposed to any information about who you are or what you do as a brand, offers an on-ramp, offers a door to your audience saying, this is what we believe is important. If you believe it too, come join us. And Twitter recently did an incredibly powerful campaign organized around an idea that public manifestations can be powerful. And the campaign was called, If You Can Dream It, Tweet It. And what they did, it was actually a billboard campaign that they then kind of translated into tweets. They took famous people, Meg Thee Stallion, Issa Rae, Demi Lovato, professional athletes, and they dug up old tweets where they were manifesting the success that they now enjoy. And they paired it with a current picture. And what was so incredible about this campaign is that when it appeared on Twitter, when these tweets appeared on Twitter, these tweets had quote tweets in the tens of thousands. And what you discovered was happening is that people, not famous people, everyday people, were taking those tweets, photoshopping in pictures of themselves now with their old tweets that had manifested their success. So you have this woman who had dreamed of becoming a varsity basketball coach sharing the fact that she had now achieved her dream. And the reason this campaign was so impactful, so powerful, across all different kinds of people, of different backgrounds, different races, different professions, is that it touched on something innately human. This idea of dreaming, of having a dream, of wanting to be better, of wanting to accomplish something that is important to us. And so in many ways, what this campaign marketed was not Twitter. It was the job Twitter does for us as a place for us to manifest our dreams and celebrate our successes. And it was powerful because anyone could identify with that. So what can you do today to create more impactful stories? First, look at what you're already saying. Look at the messaging you're using, the copy you're using, the images you're using. Do you focus more on your product or service or on your audience and what they can do? Do you promote a standard that you're asking everyone to conform to, or do you celebrate difference? And finally, do you offer a belief, an idea, a purpose that anyone and everyone could join? When will we see a day where the marketing that we create and interact with, whether that's email or social media or paid media or earned media or our websites or even the metaverse, is honest, authentic, welcoming, and inclusive? Does that sound like a pipe dream? Does that sound unrealistic? Because what you do today, tomorrow, and the next day can help us realize this vision of the future. So I leave you with this question. What will you do to make your marketing more inclusive? Thank you so much. If you'd like to learn more or these ideas interest you, please follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And if I can be of help in any way, please reach out to me via email. Thanks again.